Good afternoon. My take on it is that you simply can't apologise your way out of breaking the law. And the way that this apology is couched, as Malachy has said there, it's very carefully couched. It's not a blanket apology for calling for the murder of Tory MPs. It specifically apologises to the Amos and Cox families. So does that mean that they were okay with other Tory MPs being targeted? That's left ambiguous in the statement. And we've had ridiculous comments from them, like saying that this was taken out of context. How on earth can you take the phrase "kill your local MP" out of context? But one of the things that I would say about this group is that this is not an isolated incident. This is part of a pattern. Because this is a group that goes about, and I appreciate the point that Malachy's made there, they go out to provoke and they go out to cause controversy in a way. But the way that they do that is offensive to many people who lost relatives at the hands of violence. This is a group that goes about with one of its members calling himself DJ Provocation. It plays on the word kneecap.
I think the argument they often use that these are just names, and they've also said very much in the statement as well. At no point of that do they ever support any attack on any civilian. That is very clearly written in there. And in terms of potentially breaking laws, we have to be mindful that there is in fact counter-terrorism police are investigating this. So we'll leave it at that point. But I mean, this is just performative, a lot of it, and they've said they're sorry.
You say that, but saying that you want the Brits out, that's a statement of ethnic hatred. That's a statement calling for ethnic cleansing. I'm a Brit. There's lots of people in Northern Ireland who classify themselves as Brits. We've a right to be here. It's not right to go about making a joke of the idea of putting a gun to somebody's kneecap and leaving them unable to walk for life. It's not appropriate to have a balaclava clad member of your group playing on the name Provisionals after they murdered 1,800 people. I mean, a feature later in this programme is going to be about the murder of 10 people because they were Protestants on the side of the road.
Just to address a few of those points, because you're obviously coming from somewhere quite different.
Yeah. Well, I think Brenton Cox addressed some of those points much more articulately and much more authoritatively than I could. He made the point that you can have different views about Gaza, you can articulate a view about Gaza. Those wouldn't be necessarily views that I share. But to say that you are being attacked for your views in Gaza when you're being criticised for saying you should murder an MP is to conflate totally different things. And shame on anybody that does that, and shame on the nationalist journalists who have done that in the press, because that's not what they're being criticised for. They're not being criticised for their position on the Middle East. They're not being criticised for standing up for Palestinian civilians. They're being criticised for saying that people should be murdered.
Just to bring you some of their statement, because it's long enough. It's been read out quite a few times, but I just want to go through a little bit more of it again, and this is just for you, Sammy, as well. So they said they want, this is their quote, they want you to believe words are more harmful than genocide. Establishment figures desperate to silence us. They've combed through hundreds of hours of footage and interviews, extracting a handful of words from months or years ago to manufacture moral hysteria. Is there not a bit of, I don't want to call it a lesson to be learned, but is there not a little bit of some of this when it comes to Kneecap? Maybe not necessarily the most recent thing we're discussing with Kneecap, but the other controversies which you alluded to earlier, that it comes down to the argument that you had with The Life of Brian or the Beastie Boys, that, you know what, you're better off just ignoring this because ultimately you're just pouring loads of publicity on top of it, something you accused us in the BBC of doing as well.
Yeah, well, my problem is it isn't ignored. It is platformed, it is mainstreamed, and mainstreaming the glorification of terrorism, mainstreaming an organisation which makes light and makes a joke of a campaign that resulted in 1,800 deaths, and saying, as Mary Lou MacDonald has, that this is one of the best things ever to happen to the Irish language, is all coarsening public discourse.
Again, just to be clear, they do say that they don't support any. They condemn, in fact, all attacks on civilians. Always, it's never okay. They say we know this more than anyone. Yeah. given
here's my
given
point.
our nation's history. And you can't deny they have done something for the profile of the Irish language. Again, something that perhaps is certainly not. You're not the key demographic for that, but ultimately you can't dispute the people who are interested in the Irish language. They have provided a platform for that.
They have, and they've also provided people like me, who's not part of that demographic, with plenty of ammunition to say, well, if that's the sort of Irish language culture that you want to promote, that's not exactly reaching out, is it?
Just on those comments there from Malachy, I suppose, is it just a chance to say, look, okay, you made a mistake, move on, or is that not cutting through for you?
I think we need to reflect on the fact that if it's wrong to say what they've said about killing MPs, then we need to look at the views of victims of the IRA. And I would like the BBC, in dealing with this group going forward, whenever they talk about Kneecap, that they bring on a victim of the IRA to talk about how they feel about DJ Provy and the likes of that. You talk about them being better ignored? Perhaps so. But if we're going to ignore them, then we need to stop giving them government grants, like the one that they got from the government not so long ago, and they need to be stopped giving access to public spaces.
The government has actually said, hasn't it? They are just assessing that funding in the future.
But here's a point as well. They've been given access to public spaces by Belfast City.